everybody. This is a special episode of Seeking Wisdom. Why is it a special episode? Because, well, we were at Shopify in Canada about a week ago. And while we were there, we had an awesome opportunity to sit down with Shopify Plus's VP and General Manager, Loren Padelford. And I had heard of him before because he had wrote a couple articles about why he hates BDRs and their traditional sales process, which was really interesting to hear a sales leader say that. And so we were up in Canada for a bunch of meetings. We happened to be at Shopify Plus for the day. And while DC was in the other room talking about, I don't know, some big important CEO stuff probably, I was able to grab Loren and do a quick interview. So this is one of my favorite episodes that we've done because he tells it like it is. We talked about sales interviewing, how he hires, what to look for today, and what's broken about the traditional sales process. So if you're in sales and marketing, I think this episode will be right up your alley and something new that we want to try. We're really passionate about bringing our role models and amazing people to Seeking Wisdom this year and expanding the podcast by bringing on a lot more guests. So I'd love to get your feedback about what you thought about Loren and how this interview went. So tweet at me, at Dave Gerhardt, hit up DC as well, at DCancel. Do all the things that DC would tell you to do if he was here right now. Leave a 5-star review, 6-star review, all that. So hope you enjoy this interview with Loren, and we'll talk to you soon.
Let me just make sure that we're good here. You want to just say hi, introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Loren Padelford from Shopify Plus.
Beautiful. All right, cool. So, wow, this is fun. We're here. This is a special episode of Seeking Wisdom. We're going to do more of these now. We want to talk to more in sales and marketing people. So, actually, we're here at Shopify Plus. DC is in the other room talking to some people about some other stuff, but I'm here with Loren. I thought it would be fun to just talk about sales, hiring, things that are interesting to you. You have a really interesting story. So maybe start with some background. So Shopify Plus is now 200 plus-ish people and a big part of the Shopify business, but it wasn't always that way. You started this in 2015, right?
Right. So I think I started Plus in January, argument's sake, January 2015.
Okay.
As an experiment, and it started with salespeople. There were, call it 5 salespeople at the start.
What were you doing before in the business? Like,
I wasn't in the business. Actually,
you weren't. You came
yeah.
here to start it.
Yeah. I mean, that's its own story. I took a job without any real idea of what I was actually doing, and it was very kind of, hey, we have this thing that might be another thing, and you should try that, right? So,
yeah.
Partially it's Shopify. And so like the old adage, when someone offers you a seat on the rocket ship, you don't ask which one, you just get on, right?
Yep.
So we started with 5 sales reps and kind of no idea what we were doing. And that's literally how we started it. We hired straight out of university, no sales experience. I scared them as much as I could about the job. And I was like, this will suck. We don't know what we're doing. You shouldn't take this job. You're probably going to get fired in 8 months and we're all going to get buried in the desert.
That was the actual interview process?
Oh yeah, this was like literally.
And did you do that on purpose? Because you're trying to find people who are like, shit, I don't care what we do. I just want to be here.
Yeah. I mean, what was fascinating is, some people, the more you tried to scare them, the more excited they got, right? And so like the people who were left at the end were the ones who were like, this is amazing, like death to everyone. And you're like, okay, great. Yeah. And so we started this and the first day I was like, okay, I really don't know anything. I have no sales training for you. So what I'd like you to do is like pick up the phone and like call people. And then you come back and tell me how it worked.
But Shopify had been around. Like, were they calling? Were they like logging into Salesforce, grabbing some good leads and calling them, or did you not even get them?
So you're right. Shopify had been around a long time, and so we had current customers who profiled out a certain way, and so we called them and we were like, hey, do you want to upgrade to Plus? And so that was like the first kind of calls. But we also at the same time, I had I call it the inbound team, but we also, a couple of sales reps were outbound. And so they were just like total greenfield.
Yep.
It's like, there's a market, enjoy, right? And so they were just calling people cold and learning, and we were developing the scripts on the fly and trying to figure out what worked and what didn't. And I mean, it was a ton of fun. We were in a crappy little office in Kitchener. Intentionally, it's like Shopify had this glorious office in Ottawa and a nice office in Toronto, and I was like, we're not doing that, right? Like, until we've proven something, we don't get a nice office.
I love it. I want to talk about that for a second. So we talk about that on this on Seeking Wisdom Talk. We talk about like the personal and the personal side of work. But like, why was that important? Because obviously now you walk in this office, you're like, this is amazing. I'm a visitor. I got to go, I had lunch. I had a protein shake. I had a massage. Like, it's unbelievable. But why was that an important part of your like philosophy to be like, this is going to be shitty for a while?
You know what? I grew up playing sports, and you didn't get to claim ownership of the awesome stuff until you went through the ditch.
It's like the guy who comes in and he's like, he gives himself a nickname. You're like, you don't get to
your
pick
own nickname, right? Like, go do something, then come back and tell me how awesome you are. And so it was kind of what I was saying is we haven't done anything yet. Shopify, like, they deserve their big office. They've been around. They have hundreds of thousands of customers. What do we have? Like, nothing, right? So, and it was also a goal. It was, I wanted the team to own it. I wanted them to feel like if we did this thing, they could look back and be, I did that, right? Which creates a different emotional state for people. And so that was important. Yeah. So we started with the experiment. It, has gone very, very well.
Apparently.
So now, Plus is, 300 plus people. We announced last week we're adding another 300 to 500 over the next couple of years, right, here in Waterloo. So it is scaled extremely fast.
How long have you been doing sales?
My whole career. So I graduated university, so we're 20 plus years at this point.
All right, so 20 years. What is different about sales between when you started the Shopify Plus thing? Because there's a huge shift, obviously, now in the way people buy and behave online. Like, how do you boil that down? What's the biggest difference between January 2015 to January 2018 and the other 17 years of selling?
I think there's a couple things. I think there are some things that are always the same. So the only successful salespeople are the ones that add value. That has always been that way. Yeah. So you just have awesome products in your walking brochure. Nobody cares, right? So like if you don't learn to add value, you're not going to survive. And so that has been true since I got out of college.
Yeah. It's funny because for a while we were like, helping is the new selling. Then I did an interview with somebody who's like, no, helping is the old selling. Yeah. Like that's always been the case.
Yeah. Helping is the only selling.
It's the only selling. We've just gone in this, like everything is sales tools and marketing automation and funnels and nurturing and conversion and all this stuff. And we've just like made everything a machine.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the biggest change is technology.
Okay.
Is, if I think back to my first sales job, it's like I didn't have LinkedIn. I didn't have like all these amazing tools that like got lists for me. I had like the yellow pages, and I had a territory that I would like knock on doors and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I think technology has made some things better, but it's also very dangerous in that technology can make bad processes a lot faster. And so it's like if your process is crap, guess what tech's going to do to it? Make it more obvious crap.
Like I got a couple weeks ago, I got a personal message on LinkedIn from the CEO of $1 billion company. You think that guy actually sent me that email? Like, do people still fall for that? Like, that's the whole technology thing that drives me nuts.
And so again, it's to me, you misunderstand sales if you think just because you have the platform and it sends out 1 million emails, that's what you should do.
Right.
So I think technology has changed. I also think, which I'm happy about because it's always been the way that I've looked at it, is technology has moved from this black magic, this like unknowable, your magician sales rep who magically deals appear, to the science of it. And I'm a big believer in sales as science. It's like, this is process engineering. You either are good at process engineering and you understand the component pieces, or you don't. There's no magic here, right? Like, I've never met that magic sales rep. That's not true. I've met 2 of them. I've been in sales for 20 years. I've met 2 people I still like. People just bought things from them. I don't understand.
You didn't know why.
I didn't know why. They were just like, it's like they'd walk in rooms and people would hand them money. And you'd be like, I don't know what that is. I could never replicate it.
You're like, that wasn't even a good demo.
No, it's terrible. It was like, people just were like, here's my children, here's money, like you can have whatever you want. And so it's like 20 years, 2 of those people, I think the odds are in the favor of like,
but for most, and what is that science? Like, what are the steps?
So here's the way I describe it is, Every single major league Hall of Fame athlete in the world can tell you every statistic about everything they've done ever.
Crazy.
And about everybody else.
I always think about that. They know, like, I'm a big podcast guy. I listen to Bill Simmons' podcast a lot, and he'll have random people on. And he'll be like, you remember in 2007, that game against the Lakers? And, somebody will be like, yeah, that was the game, my ankle. Like,
exactly.
It's crazy.
And so there's no different, like, to me, that's the same in sales. Is like, you have to start with your own behavior. Like, as a sales rep, how many calls do I make? What's my own conversion ratio between initial call and second call, initial call and demo, initial call and what's all the math that governs my reality? As a sales rep, I don't control revenue. I don't wake up every day and do quota. That is not a thing, right? That is an output of activity.
Right.
What I do every day is activity, right? Michael Jordan didn't wake up every day and win championships. He woke up every day and shot free throws, right? And so that's sales calls to a salesperson. And so it's like knowing that, tracking that, optimizing that. I like to joke, I used to work, I sold things to the automotive industry, and they have this concept of Six Sigma. And so Six Sigma is reducing the variance down to a negligible or an acceptable amount. And I've always loved that concept in my mind about sales, is if you actually lined up sales as a manufacturing process, it's like in the front end is leads and out the other end is revenue. All the steps in the manufacturing process, make a call, send an email, do a demo, do a follow-up, go on site, all these kinds of, if you just worked every day to tweak them and make them incrementally better, the net aggregate impact is enormous. But most sales reps I've ever met, most sales managers I've ever met, could not explain to you how anything happened in their org. What they'd tell you is like the Dr. Seuss version of everything, which is like, once upon a time in a land far, far away, I had a customer who I really felt like they would buy. I'm like, that you felt like they would buy. Oh, wow, this is amazing. I feel like I should have a Ferrari. I don't have one, but I feel like I should. Like, it's like, what are we doing now? We're talking about like how we feel about stuff?
Right. Or even if that stuff does happen, like maybe there are some times where you might have a one-call close or whatever. That's basically like house money if you do all the other things right.
Correct. And so I like to remind salespeople that sales is a long-term game. Now, it feels like it's a short-term game because we tend to optimize it for quarters or month or year or whatever, but it's actually a long-term game. And in order to win the long-term game, you have to understand what you're doing. And that's, to me, the science of it. You have to really break down the pieces and just get very clear on what you're good at and what you're not good at.
And so how do you, like, do you interview for that? Do you drill into those funnels, like, per rep or like?
Yeah, I mean, I interview for it I interview for how people evaluate their own performance, right? So I'll ask questions around like, tell me why you're good at this, right? Not just that you're good at it. It's great that you're good at it.
So you'd say to me, tell me, why are you good at selling?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if people are like, I don't know, I'm just kind of good at it. Okay, right? Like, so you think it's magic.
Right.
Other people, like we did an interview, one of the first reps that we had into the organization, I was giving him information and he's like, I don't understand this. Can you get up on the whiteboard and explain it to me? And I was like, oh, I kind of love you already.
Yeah.
Right? Because like his brain was working in this way that was like, explain this to me with math. I want to see a process. I'm like, yes, processes. I like it. So yeah, I think when I interview people, I'm looking for people who will break down performance into its piece parts and say performance is not random, performance is built. So
you push them to control the things that they can control.
Yeah,
okay.
Or at least understand it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
like if you can't tell me your free throw percentage, how do you know you're good or not?
I love it. Ask anybody. Oh, you shoot 65%. You better shoot some damn more free
What
throws.
did you do yesterday? Right? I shot more of them. Yeah, okay, great. Like, I mean, this was my thing. As a sales rep, I was terrible at cold calling. I just was. Yeah. And so when I broke down my numbers, if you looked at my numbers, I made an enormous amount of cold calls comparatively to my like peers and counterparts. But I was really good at the rest of it. And so, it balanced itself out. Well, if I was really bad at cold calls and really bad at demos, you're just bad. Now you're going to see that this is going to be a problem.
I mean, it's the marketing. It's both marketing and the piece of sales, right? You could either grow traffic, grow a ton of leads, or find the other pieces of the funnel. Are we going to spend a ton more at the top of the funnel? Yeah. All right.
So I also think, to go back to your question of what's changed, I also think buyers' tolerance is lower now. Right? So it used to be that there was a little bit of the buyers were willing to have conversations and they were like, hey, let's talk about this, right? But now with the internet and with information, it's not necessarily like there's a lot of talk around buyers come into the sales process 70% already baked, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? It's not a sales process yet.
You don't like that one.
I just think it's inaccurate. It's like, well, they might come into a conversation with what they believe is 70% of the information.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've never thought of myself like I am currently in the buying process.
Exactly.
Hello.
Right? Like, what does that mean? It's like, are you at step 4 of my 5-step process?
So it's not that the 70% is wrong. It's just like it's more just like I might be ready to buy a new phone and I'm researching a bunch of different types.
Yeah. So buyers show up now with what they believe is a lot more quality information.
Gotcha.
Now, the challenge is if you go Google the term cell phone, you're actually not going to be helped with information. You're going to be overwhelmed with information.
Yes.
And so what you'll do is you'll show up with a bunch of erroneous information. If you want any example of this, ask doctors how they feel when patients come into their office. And they're like, so I was on WebMD yesterday, and apparently I have everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, would you stop Googling things?
We have a 4-month-old, and the first thing that the pediatrician told us when we took her in, she was like, all right, before I let you guys go, do me a favor. Do not Google anything. Right. Just call me and I will answer your question.
Right.
And I was like, I love it. Okay.
And so much like doctors are like tour guides of what you really have versus what you think you have, I feel like sales reps are also tour guides. It's like, so I wrote this blog post one day that equated sales reps to tour guides. And I said, imagine the customer. The customer is going to go on a trip to another city. And so let's say this city is e-commerce software. That's the name of the city.
It's a great city.
That customer doesn't live there, right? The customer lives in fashion manufacturing. And so what you do when you're going to go travel is you get online. You're like, ooh, I wonder what e-commerce city's like. Okay, so you Google e-commerce city, and a ton of information shows up. So I like to relate this to Toronto. So imagine if you Googled Toronto.
Yep. Which I did on my way here.
Okay. So if you live in Toronto, there's this big stadium downtown, and the roof retracts on the stadium. Okay. Are you aware of this stadium?
I'm very aware.
Okay. What's the name of the stadium?
The Rogers Center? Is that what it is?
What's the actual name of the stadium?
I have no idea.
Skydome.
The Skydome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So if you lived in Toronto, no one refers to that thing as the Rogers Center.
They don't?
No, it's Skydome. Right? And so like if you were traveling to Toronto, you'd be like, I'd like to go to the Rogers Center, and people would be like,
the
you
what?
mean the Skydome? Could be that thing? Right? And so again, the internet failed you. Told you it was the Rogers Center instead of what everyone really knows it to be the Skydome. And so a customer shows up and is like, I know everything about your city. I Googled it. And you're like, oh.
Do you though?
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So the best thing a sales rep can do at that point is say, what do you want to experience while you're in my city? Right? Because I'm sure you know a lot. But like, let me help you understand what you should know.
Yeah.
That thing isn't the Rogers Center.
Right.
It's the Skydome. Right.
Or it's just like, hey, if I said to you like, hey, we're staying in Toronto tonight, where should we go to eat? You wouldn't just say a restaurant, right? You would be like, well, what do you like?
What do you want?
Do you have any allergies?
Tour guides.
What'd you have last night? Yeah, that's a good analogy.
I think right now what happens is like, people go online, they Google, they got lots of information, and they show up, and they sound like they know what they're talking about. And so I think it freaks sales reps out. Because sales reps are like, oh my God, that person knew everything. It's like, wait a minute. Did they know everything? Or did they know the first 2 pages of Google?
I love it because this is something that you're making me rethink this a little bit. Like, that's so obvious. But I know that when people come to our website and ask us questions, we're like, oh, shit, this guy knows. This guy knows. When if you just took a step back and said for a second, like, well,
How did this guy know?
Yeah.
They Googled. They don't live here. They don't live in my city. Right. They're at best tourists to the city.
Right.
And so the best thing I can do is show them the real city, not the city they Googled.
Yeah. And do you think that fits in? Because we started talking about like buyers, people are more skeptical, right? And that helps there, right?
That helps because, largely when I Google things, I just get overwhelmed, right? And so I'm like, oh my, what am I looking at here? And then if I call someone or if I engage with a salesperson at that moment, my hope is that they demystify this for me.
Yeah.
Right? That they explain the city. Because I'm like, all I wanted was like a steak dinner.
Right.
And there's 500 steak restaurants and they're all different, but they all say they have the best steak in the world. Which one is it? And it's like, it's all right. I'm with you. Right.
I'm here because I'm looking for you to help me make this decision.
Help me. And so if anything, information has caused more need, right, for the sales reps to be helpful, to add value. It hasn't caused less, right? It's created more need for it.
Okay. What else? I was going to ask you some other stuff. Do you have any? What else is on your mind about sales?
Yeah,
Like people.
here's So here's one of the things that I think I always find interesting about hiring salespeople.
Yes.
Here's the refrain I always hear: you can't find qualified salespeople.
Why do they say that?
Because it's a good question, right? It's like people are like, well, I can't find salespeople that are exactly like the people that work at my company now, have this much experience in my industry, have sold the exact same
Wouldn't
product.
that be awesome? You just drag the spreadsheet and you're like, boom, there's next quarter.
Right, and you're like, what? You want people that are exactly, wait, what? And so I think I get frustrated because I've never hired salespeople like that. I've always looked at salespeople and said, yeah, all right, I'm going to hire the things I can't teach you, and then I'm going to teach you everything else. Right? And so in this world, I now look for attributes, right? So, intelligent, creative, curious, hardworking, and a history of success. Okay, great. That's all I look for. I don't really care what your degree is in, right? I don't even care if you have a degree. I don't care where you worked before. Oh, you were the greatest salesperson in the history of your former company? I don't care, right? It actually there is zero correlation between past performance and future performance. Statistically, it sounds like there should be, but it's kind of like the stock market. Past performance is not an indicator of future performance. It's the same thing because there's so many variables at play.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Right?
Yeah.
That it's like, when you started at the other company, were they in the hottest industry and the hottest company at that moment in time?
Right.
Did you take over someone else's territory that was amazing?
Was it the exact same sales motion?
Exact same sales motion. Yeah. It's like there's so many variables. Now, it's not to say you should totally ignore it, but it's not by itself a reason to hire anybody.
But you could maybe dig in, and this is maybe what you do. You may dig in to find out why. They were the top performer because they did their homework. They did have the discipline of the funnel.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I go back and I say, I think we're overemphasizing experience in most sales. Now I say most sales, and some things. Okay, you're going to sell, robot surgery platforms. You should probably know what surgery is, right? You probably needed some expertise in that area. Gotcha. Yeah. Right. Nuclear reactors. Yep.
I'm not your guy.
Probably should be an engineer.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yeah.
Probably not.
But I mean, if somebody comes to you guys and is interviewing for Shopify Plus, you're like,
vast majority.
You don't have to. You can understand the business. Right?
The vast majority of Shopify Plus sales reps have never sold anything before in their lives.
But they probably bought something online.
They've bought something, but they work hard. They're curious. They're intelligent. We can teach them.
Yeah.
I can't teach you any of those things.
Okay.
Right.
What is your interview? Walk me through the interview process a little bit.
The interview process at Shopify. The interview process for the first 5 sales reps was more unique than I guess the interview process is now. But the interview process is heavy on culture, right? So we look for cultural fits.
And the reason I'm interested, I'm just thinking okay, scaling a team from 5 to however many.
I think we have 60 or something.
60 or something. There has to be some type of machinery at some point, right?
Yeah. Well, this is
interest in that
This is
piece.
what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
Is my pool of potential applicants is way greater than most because I'm not stuck on where you went to school, on what your previous job was, on whether you have experience. I don't care. Right? What I'm interested in is smart, creative, curious, intelligent, and a history of success. Huge swaths of people, right? And so I just have a much bigger funnel.
Yeah.
Right?
So do you think that's an advantage?
It's a huge advantage.
Because you're willing to look at it from that lens.
Well, and if you look at the performance of our sales organization, right, and how fast we've scaled up,
pretty good.
I would put my sales org from a metric perspective against any sales org in the world and say, I don't have experience, but my people sell way more, way faster than yours.
Love it.
Partially, I believe we hire people right out of school who don't know the rules. So there are rules in selling that after a while you start to figure out. They don't know them.
Well, and that can be hard. Like if you hire somebody really who's done this before,
I have to untrain all the crap they learned somewhere else.
Or they stroll in and expect to have this process, this meeting set up for you. Wait, we don't have BDRs here? What the hell? I have to set my own meetings?
Right. That's crazy time. It's like, our teams largely just don't know any better.
So how do you do you have a big recruiting team that you work with? Because the funnel is so wide, somebody has to help filter.
Yeah, so absolutely, we have an internal recruiting team that are dedicated to this, and they're great. We take a lot of referrals from the current reps that are here, and they're great. And we go through a lot of interviews with people where we're trying to determine, are you curious and are you intelligent and will you learn?
Do they do any selling? Do you have any of that?
We do role play.
Okay.
Right. Where we throw them into interesting scenarios. My belief is sales is completely unpredictable. So in the first 5, now that the org is so big and I'm cross-functional, I don't do a lot of direct sales hiring myself anymore.
Yeah.
But that first 5, we did things like we'd be in the middle of an interview and I would get up and I'd be like, I just have to go to the washroom, and someone else would come back and continue the interview.
I love it.
Yeah. Or we'd be like, you're going to come back tomorrow and we need a really unique way to pitch us. Right? So we had one person that we totally hired. He came back with a puzzle. He created a puzzle.
You said, pitch us why we should hire you.
Yeah. And he came back with a puzzle on how Shopify works.
Unbelievable.
And he put it together while explaining Shopify. It was mind-blowing.
That's
and you were like, yeah, you're hired. I don't even know for what, but you get to work here.
You got to do something.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
and that's why there's a puzzle out there. I saw it.
And so it's like, it's like, I'm a big believer in like, you've got to create hiring processes and experiences that mimic reality. Reality is not going to be linear in sales. Yeah. Weird things are going to happen this moment you get into sales. And so if the interview process for salespeople is all nice and flowers and easy to do, it's not actually helping them or you determine if this is the right person.
Right? Yeah, it's like, if you drove a car at 2 miles an hour with training wheels on, then all of a sudden, like, that's not the...
And I'm not sure who lied to everybody and told everyone there was a way to hire. Right? Like there's this is how you hire people.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Why would we hire them like that? We're trying to hire someone who's going to do a job. Let's create a process that best reflects that and ensures we get what we're looking for.
Cool. What do you read any books?
I read all the books.
You do?
Yeah,
give me some like if I like chopped out this audio from this podcast and said like these are the X books that you say every person in business must read or sales. What do you have a couple?
Yeah, I have a couple. So I think like I liked 0 to 1 by Peter. I just like how anti everything Peter is.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I know Mark, and so the Sales Acceleration Formula was a good book.
Yeah, we love Mark. What's up, Mark? I know you're listening.
I thought it was a really good kind of like math-based way
to go back to your whole point about metrics, right? Like,
yeah, I kind of stole it all from
read that book, and then you're like, okay, I get what that piece is. Yeah.
I think people would be well suited to read like Elon Musk's like biography.
Yeah,
like
the Ashley Vance one is a great one. Yeah,
and only because like you want to know how to innovate, think totally tangentially to the box, right? There's a guy out there named Mike Weinberg, and Mike is old, like he's old school, right? But he's so hardcore. Like he I don't know if you can swear on this podcast.
You can, please.
He gives 0 fucks.
Yeah.
Right?
I love it.
He just calls people on their BS constantly.
Is he a sales trainer?
He's a sales trainer,
okay.
Right? It's called. He wrote a book called Sales Management Simplified, and it was basically a quit crying. Right? it was like all of you are crying. It's just a waste of our time.
Yeah.
You can either get back to what selling always was, which was adding value and doing the work. Like there's no magic here, and I was like, yes, like there's no magic. There's no silver bullets around. You don't want to wake up in the morning to make calls. I got bad news for you. You're going to suck at sales.
I love it. That's why we talk about books so much in this podcast, because for that reason, so many times you read a book and you're not learning something new, but it's reinforcing something that like you already knew. Right?
Yeah.
You already believed
Well,
in.
this is the way, like very rarely do I read a sales book where I'm like, holy crap, that's new information.
Yes.
Now, every sales book has at least one piece that I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, right? Like, that's new. I've never heard it like that. Most are retelling the same stories. And I think people need to read between the lines there. It hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
You just have, like, humans need to learn by repetition. And so they keep reading the same thing over and over. And eventually it's like, yes, wake up every day, go work your butt off, add value, go to bed.
It's like like Bezos has this thing where he talks about like focus on the timeless, focus on the things that never change, right?
And the things that never change are customers need help, sales reps help them.
I love it. All right, let's finish with this. What's one thing that drives you nuts about sales today? You got to have like a pet peeve or something like.
I think people are over reliant on technology. And I say that working for a technology company.
Right.
I just think it's making people lazy.
I like that. We could do a whole episode on this piece, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I hear one more rep say, well, I posted it to LinkedIn, I don't know why people haven't called me yet. I'm like, I'm sorry. What? Sorry. What did you post? To
Or just like the fact that like going to somebody's website, doing some research, finding some like things that are a little bit below the surface level has now become again like groundbreaking. Like we were having a conversation with it, and we just hired a new sales rep, and he's amazing. And somebody was talking about he went to this website and he looked up this competitor thing and he did it, and everybody was like, woo! And for a second I was like kind of mad. I was like, why is that and I don't mean that as a knock to him. He's awesome. It's more of just like, that's the stuff that we celebrate shows you that that's the biggest problem in sales.
Exactly right. Is we're getting lazy, and that like you said, that kind of stuff is like, this is basic sales behavior. And we're hoping tech solves. I think sales reps incorrectly hope tech solves for hard work.
Yeah,
and it doesn't.
I love it. It's made us lazy. Okay, I've got one more because I thought of another one. What is the last sales outreach to you that got your attention? Can you think of something, or just ignore everything?
I don't know. I don't ignore everything. I actually look at a huge number of inbounds to me.
You do?
I do. First of all, I think it's also like sales reps need to learn. Executives will absolutely take calls from sales reps if they think there's value there, right? No question.
Goes back to add value.
I can't possibly know everything in the world, right? And so like I need people to help me understand things that may be valuable to me.
For sure.
Right? So I look because...
So boom, unlocked misconception number one is that you can reach out to execs.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. I think what I see more now, unfortunately, is just horrible behavior, right? Lazy behavior. And it gets my attention because I want to reply and be like, are you serious? This is what you came up with?
Yeah.
It's like I got one the other day. So Shopify is publicly traded on both the New York Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange.
I'm nervous.
we have a $10 billion market cap, right? And I got a LinkedIn request from a local accounting firm asking if we needed accounting help. I read this thing like 5 times and I was like, I must be misunderstanding what they're asking for.
You should show up with like 5 truckloads of paper and say, yep.
Yep, we do. And I was just like, you didn't even bother to do the Google work. Like this would have been answered via Google.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff. So I see that a lot.
But that's just that to me that's back to your point about technology's made us lazy. That was an automated email.
Correct.
Not hit
giant list, send it to list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if I think back to ones that I've really liked, I've seen a few that clearly had done their homework, right? They knew who I was. They had read some of the blog posts. They knew who Shopify was. They knew how fast we were growing, and they angled their whole thing to that. That was still a pitch. It was still like, hey, I think we can help you in these areas based on the information I have. But at least I was like, okay, so at least you've gone out and tried to figure out what my trigger would be,
right?
And unfortunately, for most sales reps, the other thing you have to realize is like sales is timing, right? And so in that moment in time, I didn't need the thing they were doing, right? However, I remember the pitch. And so it's like, there's a part of me, it's like, yeah, you weren't a total idiot. And so at some point in the future, when I do need the thing you're talking about, I'll come back to you.
Imagine that, adding value.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, no, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Welcome to Shopify Plus.
Thanks for having us. The food and snacks here are just delightful. So thank you.
We try.
Cool, man. Thanks.
All right, thanks.